You spend 14 months overseas saving lives, patching up soldiers under fire, counting down the days until you can finally come home. You dream of breakfast with your mom, holding your husband close, feeling safe again. But the moment you step through the door, your stomach drops, because standing in your kitchen is your husband, the man you thought you knew better than anyone, and he's tipping a bucket of filthy water over your elderly mother while she kneels on the floor crying silently. And when he notices you, he doesn't even stop. He just stares at you, cold and unblinking, as though you're the one who shouldn't be there. Would you scream? Would you fight? Or would you stand frozen, realizing your entire marriage had been a lie? Mariah Williams had been a fighter since birth. Growing up in a small southern town where everyone knew everyone's business, she learned quickly that being a black girl meant you had to work twice as hard just to be treated half as fair. Her mother, Loretta, was the definition of strength. A woman who spent 35 years teaching at the local elementary school, even when parents complained that a black woman shouldn't be teaching their kids. Loretta's quiet dignity was legendary. She never raised her voice, never let the town see her sweat. Mariah idolized her. By 12, Mariah was the kid who always stood up to bullies. By 16, she was working weekends to help pay bills. And by 20, she joined the army, determined to carve out a future that didn't depend on anyone's approval. She excelled, quickly rising through the ranks to become a combat medic. And it was during one training mission that she met Jason. Jason was charming in a way that felt effortless. He was white, from a well-respected military family, and seemed to have none of the arrogance Mariah had come to expect from men in uniform. He held doors, remembered birthdays, sent her mother flowers. Loretta liked him immediately, at least at first. Their wedding was small but beautiful. People whispered, of course, about their different worlds, about how long it would last. But Mariah didn't care. For a while, life felt perfect. But over time, there were moments, little moments, that Mariah brushed off as stress. Jason once told her not to invite too many of her cousins to the housewarming party because he didn't want to make the neighbors uncomfortable. Another time, he grimaced when Loretta played gospel music on Sunday morning and joked that this isn't a church. Mariah ignored it. He was tired. He was under pressure. He'd been raised differently. But deep down, something in her chest ached. When her deployment came, she left them together, believing Jason would protect Loretta as fiercely as she had protected him. At first, things seemed fine. But after a few months, Loretta's voice over the phone sounded distant. She said she was tired a lot. Then one night, during a bad connection, Mariah swore she heard her mother sobbing quietly before hanging up. She stayed awake all night in her bunk, staring at the ceiling, wondering what was happening back home. So when her leave was approved early, Mariah didn't tell Jason. She wanted to see for herself. She drove 6 hours straight, heart pounding as she turned into the driveway. It was just before sunrise when she quietly unlocked the door, and what she saw changed everything. The smell of bleach hit Mariah first, sharp and almost metallic. The kitchen lights were on, though the sun hadn't risen yet. And there on the floor was Loretta, on her knees, scrubbing the tile with shaking hands. Her mother's hair, normally soft and carefully pinned, was plastered to her forehead with sweat. Her nightgown was soaked through, and Jason stood over her, holding a bucket of brown, grimy mop water and tipping it slowly so it spilled around Loretta's knees. It wasn't an accident. It was deliberate. Mariah's training took over. She moved before she thought, knocking the bucket from Jason's hands. It clattered loudly against the cabinets, spilling the rest of its contents. Jason looked up, startled, but not guilty. His expression was one of irritation, as though she had interrupted something important. "Why are you here?" he asked coldly. No hug, no smile, no joy at seeing his wife home alive. Just annoyance. Mariah's heart pounded so hard she could barely hear. "What is going on?" she demanded, her voice shaking. Jason's eyes flicked to Loretta and back. "Ask her," he said flatly. "Maybe she'll tell you how useless she's been since you left." Loretta's eyes filled with tears, but she said nothing. Jason grabbed his keys and walked out, slamming the door behind him. The silence left behind was deafening. Mariah rushed to her mother, lifting her gently to her feet. Loretta's hands were raw and red, the skin almost peeling from scrubbing. They sat on the couch together, Loretta shaking uncontrollably. And slowly, painfully, the truth came out. Jason's cruelty had started small, throwing out dinners, locking the thermostat, refusing to let Loretta sit in the living room when he was home. Then the insults began, racial slurs that made Loretta's stomach turn, words she hadn't heard since she was a child. And then came the punishments. He would dump dirty water on the floor and force Loretta to scrub it until it shined. Sometimes he would just watch her clean and laugh. Loretta had wanted to tell Mariah, but she couldn't bring herself to ruin her daughter's focus while she was in a war zone. "I just thought I could survive until you came home," Loretta whispered. Mariah felt something inside her crack. This wasn't just abuse. This was humiliation. This was hatred, and it had been happening under her own roof. That night, Mariah didn't sleep. She sat in the dark, clutching her mother's hand, staring at the front door like it was an enemy target. Jason came home at dawn whistling like nothing had happened. Mariah was waiting. When he saw her standing in the kitchen, he smirked. "You're still here." Mariah's voice was low, controlled, the same voice she used to calm panicked soldiers. "Why?" she asked. "Why would you do this to her?" Jason leaned against the counter, sipping coffee. "Because she disrespected me," he said flatly. "She thinks she runs this house." "She's my mother," Mariah said. Jason shrugged. "Your mother doesn't respect me, and I won't live with her kind anymore. Her kind." The words echoed like gunfire. Jason didn't shout. He didn't try to justify himself. He believed every word. And in that moment, Mariah saw clearly. This wasn't a man under stress. This wasn't a bad month. This was who Jason really was. Without another word, Mariah walked past him, grabbed his duffel bag, and started packing. Jason's calmness shattered. "You think you can just throw me out?" he shouted. But Mariah didn't stop. She hauled his bag into the driveway and dumped it on the gravel. Neighbors peeked from behind curtains as Jason's voice rose. "You'll regret this, Mariah. You'll regret choosing her over me." Mariah turned back to him, her voice steady but cold. "I'd rather stand with her and lose everything than live with you and lose myself." And with that, she slammed the door in his face. Inside, Mariah sank to the floor, shaking. For the first time since she had come home, she let herself cry. Loud, ragged sobs that racked her body. Loretta knelt beside her, holding her like she had when Mariah was a child. Mariah didn't stay silent. She reported Jason to his military superiors, filed for divorce, and documented every detail of what Loretta had endured. It wasn't easy. Some people sided with Jason. Some whispered that Mariah had overreacted. But others came forward quietly, sharing that they too had seen Jason's temper, seen the ugly looks he gave Loretta in public. Loretta stayed. Together they repainted the house, scrubbed the floors one last time, this time on their own terms. Mariah started attending therapy, not just for herself but for her mother. And slowly the house began to feel safe again. Mariah turned her pain into action, founding a support group for women of color facing abuse in interracial relationships. Soon women from neighboring counties were driving hours just to sit in that circle, to speak aloud the pain they had been hiding. Mariah had faced war zones before. But this was a different kind of battlefield, one she had survived, and one she was determined no other woman would have to face alone. Jason eventually faded into the background. His threats stopped. His name became just a file in a court drawer, but sometimes at night, Mariah would sit at the kitchen table staring at the floor, remembering that morning, at the bucket of water, her mother's trembling hands, the look in Jason's eyes, and she would whisper to herself, never again. Because this wasn't just her story. It was a story that still happens in too many homes, unseen, unheard until it's too late. And the question that should haunt every one of us is this: how many more mothers are kneeling in silence right now, waiting for someone to walk through the door? Before they break completely,